Okay, right. Neil Burgess in the house, more famously known for Barry Scott, but we know you're more than just that. So we're going to do a little deep dive. Thanks for being here.
My pleasure. Thank you for asking.
No, sorry for the technical issues we had at the beginning, but it
Well,
is what it is. Now
It
we're good.
happens. It
Yeah,
happens.
we're good to go. We're good to go. It's mostly audio these days anyway. But yeah, so you know, just wanted to take some time to discuss about some of the where your career started and how it sort of kind of ended up the way it has, being part of this sort of cultural phenomenon in this country. You've probably been on more TVs than probably royalty at this rate.
Oh, that's topical. Yeah.
Yeah, that is very topical.
Yeah, maybe not go there with the sort of reaction that's had this week.
Oh, we made that mistake releasing our last podcast the day they did the interview.
Yeah,
Oh,
killed any momentum that we had.
absolutely. I'm not surprised. Isn't it crazy, though, that the world's going bonkers about that at the moment? And there are far more important things, I have to say.
Yeah, it's a bit of a sideshow. It can be.
Yeah.
But yeah, with your career, so I understand you were a theatre actor back in the 90s.
That's correct. Yeah, I mean, I first got into acting when I went to secondary school. My form teacher was a drama and English teacher, and I think he spotted a certain gregarious nature to me and kind of singled me out and said, "Hey, you should be in the school play and do some writing and stuff like that." So I just did what I was told to avoid a detention or two. So and then I got bitten by the bug. It really did have a massive impact on my life as a teenager, and it kind of seemed to be the key, or like a Pandora's box of who I was. So I just thought I'll just pursue it. So I went to drama school. I auditioned for drama school, so I did the drama school training. And that was mainly back in the 1980s. That the emphasis there was on theatre back then, because we still only had 3-4 TV channels back then. Channel 4, I think, began around about 1982, so it was still a pretty small amount of TV channels that were available at that point. So theatre was probably your best bet if you wanted to make bread and butter money as an actor. So yeah, so I kind of went down that route. So when I left drama school, I went into the theatre, did some touring, and then I broke my leg actually playing football. And I had a moment where I could sort of sit back and review what I'd been doing. And I thought, well, I hadn't done any camera work. So I started to go down that route, and I popped up in a few adverts. And then that took me to why I'm here really today and what we're talking about.
So, like, was it always like a dream to be an actor, or was it just like a progression of?
I was always, ever since a very young age, fascinated by television. Television did fascinate, but I hadn't made the leap about acting. So I would sit like a lot of children and watch action movies and things like that, and then immediately afterwards I'd want to reenact them with my brother and sister. You know, if I saw a war film, I wanted to play war or pirates and things like that. But I didn't make that connection. And then, you know, I kind of guess I didn't really grow out of that. Everyone around me seemed to be growing out of it. But when I went to secondary school, as I say, I got into a school play or two, and I thought, no, this is resonating quite deeply within who I am. Maybe I should take a look at this. And yeah, so I did as many plays as I possibly could. I wrote plays, I wrote comedies and things like that, and got other kids to do it. And that was amazing as well. It's amazing. I know Dan was saying to me off air that he writes as well. And one of the things that I found really rewarding is that something that is in your head, you can write that down on a piece of paper, and literally within 6 weeks, it's up on stage. If you're at school, people are acting it, and it's there, it's real in front of you. And I found that process of creativity incredible. It must be like writing music and performing music as well.
Yeah, it's really rewarding.
It was really satisfying, and I thought I was very lucky that I was given the opportunity at school to do it. And then when I went to drama school, of course, you're suddenly in a fairly intense, but it was I had a lovely experience at drama school. I had some really good people that I was there with, but you're all of the same mind, and that was really great as well. So you can bounce ideas off people, copy people, learn from people. And yeah, I suddenly realized that it was at drama school. Once I got to drama school, I realized then that, yeah, I've really got to do this. I'm always going to be doing this in one way or another.
That's interesting. So when did you start to make that transition into TV? Because I understand you've done bit parts in certain roles like Waking the Dead and even Max and Paddy.
That's right. Yeah. And as I was beginning to recover from my leg, and I knew I was going to have to get back into the swing of things, I thought, well, what are you going to do once you're back on your feet, literally? I've not done any camera work. And really, I hark back to what I was saying earlier about being fascinated by television. And I thought, well, I hadn't done any TV work. And around about the 90s, television was beginning to open up a little bit. You didn't see the same 5 actors in everything, which you did in the 70s or 80s. You think there were only 12 actors in the country, although it can be a bit like that now. But, things were beginning to open up a bit. There were avenues that you could go down, adverts and things like that. So I just changed direction, wrote to an agent, and they took me on. And then all of a sudden, I'm sort of like the man in the background in a jeans advert. Or I remember doing a campaign for Clark's shoes. I was just this guy modelling hush puppies, and that kind of thing. And that led to other things like walk-on parts in Max and Paddy, as you say, and Waking the Dead as well, which were really good experiences. Particularly Max and Paddy, you can imagine.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that. Did you ever get a chance to spend time with the actors like Peter Kay, go and have a little drink?
Both he and Paddy McGuinness were both lovely people. I mean, the great thing about those two were they had a relationship before their professional one, so they'd grown up together in Bolton. So you could see that very relaxed nature between the pair of them. And Peter was very, very chilled out because he wants you to be funny and relaxed, and he also wants to riff a little bit while he's working with you, and see what happens. There is a structure, but it's loose, and he tells you that before the camera gets rolling. He said, "Look, if you want to play, just do it." And I was only playing a small part, but I was able to change the lines around, feed him something else, which he came back with, and it was really good. And off camera, the pair of them are skylarking the whole time, and then all of a sudden you'll hear action. I mean, Peter directs it, and you'll just hear action out of nowhere, and you're still laughing. But they kind of want that energy. They want that kind of, we're all in this having a really good time. And even the crew, the camera, they're finding it very, very difficult. The guys behind the camera and the sound guys,
I imagine, trying to hold a straight face.
Yeah, and it is very, very difficult because, he'll suddenly deliver a line to you out of nowhere that's not in the script, and all you want to do is laugh, and you can't. You've got to respond. So it's, it was great fun, and the pair of them were brilliant. Paddy McGuinness as well. I got a lift back to my hotel with Paddy McGuinness at the time because we filmed it in Bolton, and Paddy McGuinness at the time was still living with his mum. So that shows, they're humble, down to earth guys,
And that must teach you to be better at acting as well. Having Peter Kay throw a line at you out of nowhere and then having to act serious, it must be difficult.
Yeah, absolutely. But also, what it also does is it throw away your inhibitions. That was one of the things, because this is one of the things that helps the pre-story to Barry Scott and how Barry Scott's created, is that just play around with it. You've got this character, mess around with it, and then something will click. You just go for it. Don't be inhibited and shy and restrict yourself. Just go for it. And as we know, Barry Scott is quite big, a very big character, in fact. So in fact, that I'd worked on Stella Street as well. That was I don't know whether you guys know that, but that was a BBC Two comedy series, which had 2 actors in it. One called John Sessions, who died recently. He's a very well-known actor and comedian. And Phil Cornwall, who is a fantastic impersonator and comedic actor. And he does, I'll tell you who he plays, that you may know. The DJ that riffs with Alan Partridge at the beginning of Alan Partridge, Tony Clifton, I think his character's name is.
His radio show.
Yes. He does the thing where he's... Alan Partridge, I'm Alan Partridge. It's on Netflix right now, actually, all the series. And he's a brilliant mimic. And the pair of them, the whole premise of that program, Stella Street, was that there was a cul-de-sac with all these famous film stars living on it. So you had Michael Caine living next door to Joe Pesci, and then opposite them would be Al Pacino, and they did all these impressions. And the corner shop was owned by Mick Jagger and Keith Richards, and they did these impressions. And they needed actors to come in and play lots of different parts. And again, those two would say, just make it up, go for it. If you want to be a crazy policeman, come in and go members rolling. So it's that kind of thing, that throwing your inhibitions out the window helps actors, or certainly helped me, to get the confidence to create the character Barry Scott, definitely.
One thing I did notice, like when I do the comparisons, like I can see the origins of where the Barry Scott character would come from. The fact that you were a theatre actor, and the Barry Scott has a very hyper performative kind of persona. And
Correct.
When you look at like the sort of 1920s silent movie era, and when they transitioned into the 1930s, you have what's called talkies.
Yeah.
And it was a very rocky transition for these actors because, you know, they were very emphatic because silent films originated from the theatre. So they would have to overemphasize themselves to reach out to the audience in the back. So when you watch some of these 1930s movies, you can see it, the acting's horrific because it's just, it's not translating too well, and they had to adapt very, very quickly. And there's two actors that come to mind when I do think about you portraying this Barry Scott. The first one is Nicolas Cage. Again, he's been kind of his inspiration was from that sort of that era where they had to overemphasize themselves. And then another one I think of is Leslie Nielsen. So through the night, he again worked in theatre, and he was a disc jockey as well. And through the 1950s to 1970s, he was sort of associated with these very serious kind of characters, very stoic in his performance. But then as soon as Airplane comes along, that same stoic performance comes across very well in deadpan comedy. And then that led to the, like, Naked Gun, and it led to the scary movies towards the tail end of his career. And I think that's and he even admitted he is a funny guy. Like he enjoys comedy. He didn't want to do these serious roles. He wanted to have a laugh. Yeah. And I see that with you, with your Barry Scott. I've seen some of the stuff you've done on YouTube. You know, you like to have fun. You like to enjoy yourself. You know, fair enough. It's good to have the techniques that you learn in theatre to be a credible actor. But once you've established yourself in that area, it's good to be like, well, hang on, you know, I want to have some fun here. So you've got that very Americanized infomercial style shouting. I can't do impressions, but hi, I'm Barry Scott. You know, it's interesting. It's a very good transition.
Talking about the 1920s, 1930s movies. To go back to my training at drama school, I had a fantastic teacher called Evil Megiddo who taught me something called commedia dell'arte, which harks even further. It goes all the way back to the Renaissance Italian theatre, where you would do mask work, and you would put on a mask, and it would be a sad face or an angry face or something like that. And you would then have to use your body and physicality to adapt, adopt that style, that angry style, that fury, you know. So you would do, and I loved that stuff. It was the first time I'd ever come across anything like that. And that physicality and that freeing up of your body, it does things to you psychologically, and it does things to you vocally as well. And it was certainly something that I used when I was preparing for Barry Scott. A lot of actors, they go, and I do this too. That you said you've seen the YouTube channel. There are things there where I have gone the other way and used Stanislavski method acting on there, and you can go and see it. But with Barry Scott, I started from big and then reduced. Go as big as you can, like a commedia dell'arte character, and then reduce it to the point where it's just about bearable for people to watch and listen to. And that's what I was doing there. I was bringing it right down to the tightest boundary I could, and then making this over-the-top character. And at the time, we mentioned it earlier, I was thinking about Alan Partridge. I had just got into that. That was the cheesy feel that I wanted. You know, this guy that it could all go horribly wrong for this man any second in this advert. What's going to happen? Is he going to fall over or something like that? And I always wanted that element of you know, is it all going to go horribly wrong in this advert towards the end? But yeah, that energy, certainly from the silent era days, that kind of, and there is, you're right to pick up on it. When asked by the director at the beginning, I didn't want him to come across as a slick actor that had some kind of RADA training. So I did this kind of wooden walk, which you may have picked up on, Dan. That may be what you're looking at. If you go back to some of the Barry Scott adverts, I kind of got this imaginary rod across my shoulder where I'm kind of walking a bit
straight.
Yeah, like he's not quite comfortable about being in front of a camera. He's not used to it. So all those little things. But the reason, as you quite rightly said, I do these things is it's fun for me. I don't care if you don't notice them. I know I'm doing them, and inside I'm having a lot of fun doing it. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? So that gets me through the day. I'm thinking, yeah, I'm doing that. I'm thinking that's quite funny, you know. And if someone else notices it, then I'll go, hey, yeah, great. So, you know, you either pick it up or you don't.
So was the whole character sort of a brainstorm from yourself, or was it solely your own creation, or was it brainstormed amongst the creative team?
There was no brainstorming, no. Basically, I got sent a script the night before the audition, and I read it, and I thought it was ghastly, to be honest. I really did. I thought, oh my God, this is just horrendous. And at first, I just joined an agent, and he was an old friend of mine from drama school, and he sent me the script. And at first, I thought it was a wind-up, like an initiation ceremony.
Did you know it was going to be an advert, or was it just a script?
No, I knew it was an advert, but of course the product name. The first thing I'm reading is Cillit Bang, so I didn't know how to pronounce that. Is it Cillit? What's this word Cillit? I had no idea what that was about. Every sentence had an exclamation mark after it. And it was just so cheesy and vile. And I thought, well, I've got to make this. I've got to make this work. How do I make this work? So I tried to do it like a BBC newsreader, and that just did not sound right at all. And then I thought, you know, there's something a bit infomercial about it. Many years ago, there was an advert for Remington shavers with a chap called Victor Kiam. And he would look at the camera and go, I love this shaver so much, I bought the company. So I thought, yeah, maybe he owns this. Maybe he owns this thing, you know. Maybe there's some kind of ownership, and it's like infomercial. And like I say, I've got Partridge going on in my head. So I read the script again, and there was this thing with the penny test, and there was a line that said "good as new" when he pulls the penny out of this tank of Cillit Bang, and I just went "good as new" like that. And I thought, you know what? That's quite funny. What if I go back and do the "Hi, I'm Barry Scott. Do it in that kind of vein?" And I started to go. Now this is late at night, and I've had a couple of wines, and I'm thinking, do you know what? This is the funniest. This really works. It's just amazing. So I went to bed quite happy, and I woke up the next morning. Of course, you very often wake up the next morning and think totally differently. Yeah. What was I thinking? There's no way I can turn up at an audition and go, "Hi, I'm Barry Scott, Cillit Bang." You know, they're going to laugh me out. So, because they're going to think I'm taking the mickey out of it, you know? And I was, really, because I thought that's the only way I'm going to be able to get through it. And I'd started thinking the night before about that physicality, that kind of funny stiff walk, and thrusting the bottle out like that, you know, that kind of thing. And it
Bang.
Yeah, bang, all of that. And it did feel, I felt to myself as I was going to the audition, they're going to think I'm taking the mickey out of it. Anyway, I got to the audition, and there was about 80 guys there, and we all looked pretty much the same. And I was like 78th or something like that to be seen. And there was a holding room before you got in to see the client and the director. And when it finally came to me, and the casting director was very nervous in this holding room. And I said to her, what's the matter? And she said, "We haven't found the actor yet. It's been awful. Everyone's coming in and doing this BBC kind of announcer voice, taking it, you know, like, 'Hi, I'm Barry Scott. Do you have problems with rust?' You know, that kind of thing, doing it very natural." And I said to her, "Hold on a second, I've got something for you." So I went in there and did full on Barry. I did it louder than I've ever done it on the adverts, you know. "Hi, I'm Barry Scott," bang, just really leaping around the room. and there was dead silence afterwards. They were smiling, and then they said, "Can you do it again?" And I said, "Would you want me?"
Uncle.
Yeah, and I said, "Do you want me to do it any differently?" And they said, "No, we just want to see if you can do that again." So I did it again and walked out. And then by the time I got home, they'd phoned me and said, "You've got the part." So that was that. I mean, I just made this, and so there was a space of time between the audition and shooting, and that's when I really decided I'm going for this character. I hung my hat on it. I'm going for this kind of infomercial style. And when I turned up to the actual shoot, the director gave me no notes. There was no brainstorm, as you say, with the client about how I was going to do it. They just put me in front of the camera. I delivered the lines like you just heard, as you know, and that was it. And off it went.
Legend was made.
So the famous outfit, the blue shirt and beige chinos, was that your idea, or was that costume design behind that?
No, that was a costume thing. And if you look, I was told about this actually very early on. It's kind of like an international neutrality, that costume. It's kind of you see a lot of news presenters. I've even seen Prince William dressed like that. It offers up a non-threatening, neutral kind of, I'm not trendy, but I'm not, I'm not old-fashioned. It's just bang on neutral. And my wife and I, we often go Barry Scott. We see it so often on television, the blue shirt, the brown chinos. And that's what they were after. They didn't want him making a kind of fashion statement. There was an advert where we changed the shirt to a bright orange one.
Yeah, I remember that one actually.
It's around about the third act. Now I loved it because I thought this is going to be great, because I can get it makes me louder. But it didn't scan well on the screen. A bright orange shirt. It just didn't read well.
What year was the first recording then?
September 2004.
Mm-hmm.
And it went on for about 15 years.
Wow, that's a good gig to have. So
yeah, I was only initially contracted for one to begin with. They were just going to dip their toe in the water to see what would happen with it.
So what was how long is a day on set? Like, what time are you getting up at to start the shoot?
Yeah, you have to get up early. You've got to be at the film set for about 7 o'clock. So you got to get up fairly early. What tends to happen is they once for like 3 or 4 days, and we do a job lot. So Cillit Bang to begin with, there was just one thing, and that was Cillit Bang. But then it expanded into a range fairly shortly afterwards. So you've got Lime Scan and Shine, you've got Grease and Sparkle, and the shower foam. So we were then doing separate adverts for those, but we would film them all at the same time. So that would take about 3 to 4 days. We would not film them in this country. We would go abroad. So the first couple of years, we were filming in Budapest. And then I've been to places like Vancouver, South Africa twice. I've been to Cape Town twice, Mallorca and things like that. Mainly the Eastern European ones were done because the studios are cheaper, but the Cape Town ones we did because they wanted to film outside in February and the weather had to be good. Actually, the very first one, the penny test, that was shot in London, and what they do is they tend to do different lengths. So you'll get to see different lengths of adverts. You'll get a 50-second version, which is obviously more expensive for them, and a 20-second version, and then a real quick flash one, use this now. And then later on, once it's been edited, I'm back in the studio just to lay a voice track on it sometimes.
Yeah, what they call ADR.
Yeah, that's it.
So once it's all wrapped and edited and it's released, how quickly before you realize that this thing had gained momentum?
That's a good question. Well, the first one was shot in September, and as I say, I was only contracted to do one. And I think it came out at the end. They've really got it out very, very quickly. They got it out by the beginning of October. And I remember getting a phone call at the end of October saying, we want to give you a 3-year contract. Are you available next week to come out and shoot another one? So it really picked off. And I've got the internet to thank for that, really, and all the virals that went with it. I think had this advert been released in the 1970s, for example, you know, it would not have got the kind of status that it had. So the internet really does push this sort of thing.
Yeah, because it did coincide very much with the sort of beginning of the digital era. You know, YouTube was born in 2005, MySpace 2006, and then Facebook not too long afterwards. So it did, you know, the mid noughties was the beginning of that, and it just happened to coincide perfectly with, you know, like you said, with the social media, the birth of social media.
Yeah,
and it just at what point did like your peers and your like sort of acquaintances started to like make you aware? You know, this is huge.
There's always a little wave at the beginning when you with the first one. Oh, you're on telly, and then it went quiet. And then, as I say, we filmed another one, 3 in a year, which is very unusual. And I think round about the end of 2005, so about 12 months later, people were really contacting me and saying, "Have you seen this on the internet? Have you seen what's going on here? Have you seen that? Have you seen that viral?" You know, and I was getting sent so many links to, and my son was a baby at the time, so I was quite busy, so I wasn't surfing the net and on the computer a lot. So my phone was red hot. I was getting so many things. Look, they're making mugs with your face on, wallpaper, and there was a guy who was selling Barry Scott wallpaper and things like that. So yeah, it was around about the end of the first year when it really did go mad. And it's the virals. There was a chap as well. When was that? In 2006, I got approached by a record company because a chap called Jack Acid had done this remix of the advert. This kind of acid house, real hardcore thing. And they wanted me to get involved and just lay a voice track over it. He'd taken some samples from the advert, and it was just incredible. I went to this recording studio and we cut a disc and it got into the HMV charts at number 27, and I just could not believe it. You know, I mean, that was, as a young boy, on a bucket list, you know, get into the charts on a record, you know, but I don't play any instruments or anything like that. And there it was. So at that point, yeah, it was mad. Yeah, madness.
So did you like embrace the celebrity that came with it, or were you kind of shy away from it? Well, you seem like quite an outgoing kind of dude, so I would.
Well, at first, I don't like showing off and going, you know, hi, I'm Barry Scott, I'm the actor that plays Barry Scott. And at that time, I have to say, I like this thing creeping in that people thought he was real. And actually, my actor's vanity wanted to carry that on, because I thought that was a really, really big compliment, that some people think that a character that I've created is actually a real person. You can't get a bigger compliment than that for an actor. And I kind of had a couple of people approach me like yourselves way back then doing interviews, and I said no, I don't want to talk about it, because I want this myth to perpetuate that he is a real person. It kind of titillated me a little bit, I guess, and appealed to my vanity. And so then I let it go, and I did turn down a few things actually that I could have used to my advantage. And then suddenly I flipped the other way. Nobody knows that this is an actor that's doing this, and maybe they should. So, you know, I started to open up a little bit about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I noticed you did an interview quite recently with was it either Lad Bible or Unilad, and you were saying the same thing. You know, it kind of was a slight detriment to your other options in your career, because they actually really thought that you were this character you'd created.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and you know, at first something that seemed really great, I suddenly started thinking, hang on a minute, you know, no one's phoning me up, or I'm not getting any auditions for anything, because possibly they think I'm just going to turn up in a blue shirt and yell and scream at them, you know, yell Shakespeare. So maybe it's that, you know, people can sometimes not be very imaginative. And I did think that there is a problem there. And also there is a rumor going around the internet at the moment that Barry Scott is dead. I don't know whether you've seen that as well, but I had my mum like 2 years ago see if I was all right, because she'd read it.
Well, I saw that there was articles detailing that the character had died in the sense that the adverts were no more. So that's kind of what I took from it. Like,
No, there was something was reported where apparently I'd hit my head in turbulence in an aeroplane. I actually looked into that, and there was a chap in America called Barry Bethel who does something very, very similar to what I do here, and that had happened to him. So the Barry thing had kind of got confused in the Chinese whisper network of the internet, and then that changed to me here. And some people still, email me now and say, "Are you dead?"
It'd be pretty bizarre if we were talking to a ghost.
Yeah, I mean that. Around the mid 2010s, you did have that kind of hoax dead celebrity thing going on. Barry Chuckle, yourself, and various other characters. But then 2017 rolls along, and celebrities start dying left, right, and center. So I think that kind of killed the whole hoax thing, because there was enough celebrities actually dying.
Right then, anyway, yeah.
You had David Bowie, you had Alan Rickman.
Prince, wasn't Prince? Yeah.
And then, sadly, Barry Chuckle eventually did die.
That's right, yeah.
But
that was a bad year. That was a bad year, that one.
Yeah, that was sad, especially when David Bowie went.
Yeah, I know. He's a genius, yeah.
And Gene Wilder, that was another sad one for me.
That's right, yeah. He's a big favourite of mine. Young Frankenstein and films like that. He's amazing. Yeah.
I love that. Stevens, comedian. He was a good one for me.
He was in America.
Yeah.
But I love that Young Frankenstein, Frau Brucker, and then you'd hear Burgess crying in the background.
Yeah. I get you talk about, that goes back to 1920s pastiche kind of action and the way they're moving around. You look at those comedic actors in that film. They've really, I know Mel Brooks is a bit of a genius, but they've really done their homework there. The way that they're even moving, Marty Feldman, Gene Wilder, the way they're actually moving around, it's just fabulous. I mean, you do feel like you are watching a 1920s horror movie.
Yeah, he's a brilliant director, man.
Yeah.
Another thing I wanted to bring up is that, you find that as you get to the tail end of a current decade, there will be a lot of nostalgia for the previous decade. So now we're starting to see the rise of nostalgia for the noughties, as they call it. Myself and Sean were coming of age in the noughties, so we didn't finish school until 2008. So obviously we would see your Cillit Bang commercial all through the mid 2000s, and you start to see the memes on Facebook and on social media where there's like a 9 out of 10 chance that Cillit Bang will be part of that little collage of nostalgia photographs. Other ones will be like, I don't know, Mr. Tumbles, or will be I'm trying to think of the top of my head now. Balamory. Yeah, you have these sort of associations.
Art Attack, Neil Buchanan.
Yeah, you have these associations with the noughties, what made that era. And it's nice to, as a gimmick, to sort of have a little giggle at it and think, oh yeah, I remember that being back in the thing, 2006, 2007, whatever. But the problem is that we have this kind of habit to want to romanticize the past. Every generation thinks that they had the best era growing up. You see these 1970s, 1980s nostalgia reunions in Butlins, or 90s nostalgia up at Haven holiday parks, and it kind of put a bit of a stigma on some. Like you said, you've embraced it very well for yourself, but other people in a similar position aren't so appreciative of it being associated with a children's nostalgia.
Why wouldn't you be? I mean, I'd say that's not how my brain works at all. I mean, I still now get requests from children for birthday cards. A lot of people, I go to a pub. I live in the East End of London, and I go to this real East End spit and sawdust pub called the North Star in Leytonstone. There's a plug for it. And it's a great pub. So when they open, go and have a look. It's a great pub. But I go there regularly, and there's lads your age that come in, and they go, "You Barry Scott?" And I say, "Yeah." And they said, "Look, when I was 5, I loved your adverts." And I think that's great. I absolutely love it. Why would anyone shy away from, having been a part of someone's childhood? I think that's, all the Blue Peter presenters and the previous Doctor Who's and things like that. I think that's a lovely way to be remembered and considered. I really do.
Yeah, absolutely. I know, I agree. I just think some people, some actors just don't understand the reasons behind the phenomenon. Like a very famous example is Alec Guinness. He played Obi-Wan in A New Hope, and he just didn't understand why people, because he had a very decorative career before that.
Yeah.
And he just couldn't understand why he kept getting all this fan mail. Because
I think with someone like Alec Guinness, I mean, Alec Guinness was an extraordinary actor, and Kind Hearts and Coronets. I think he played like 20 parts. This was a man who was a proper actor, classical actor and stuff like that, theatre, highbrow theatre. And I think probably what was narking him was, after having done all of that very, very credible highbrow work, that the thing that he was probably going to get most remembered for is playing Obi-Wan Kenobi in a film that's basically based on visual effects and green screens, where he's not really had to do an awful lot of acting at all, just put a cloak on and look a little bit moody, and picked up an enormous paycheck as well. He probably got paid more for that film than the rest of his career put together, I would imagine. So I think that's probably what was. I think that was probably what was playing on his mind. But as an actor, the great thing about being an actor is each job is different, and you've just got to embrace the differences and just remember that you're very, very lucky. So if you're working in front of a green screen, that's okay. That's going to be very interesting. And if you're working for a theatre company that goes and visits schools and teaches them about science, and you're on £100 a week as well, that's going to be an amazing job to do and a fabulous experience as well.
Yeah. Do you think theatre actors have more pride in their work than someone who works, like you say, like on a green screen or something? I think
they like to think they are. They have more pride. I think that there's something worthy, isn't there, about, well, I'm a theatre actor, and then there's nothing wrong with that. I'm at the coalface of acting. But I remember I was watching an interview with Daniel Craig, and Daniel Craig is a very, very good actor. And he's got a good biography of films, CV of films. But I saw him interviewed, and he said, I could never do an advert. He said, I've been through auditions, and I just can't do adverts. I can't make an impact in 20 seconds. I can't do it. So there are some arenas that are suited more for certain actors. So, someone like Brian Blessed, for example, you can imagine him filling up a theatrical space, but you want him to play something really detailed and small in front of the camera. So there's always that kind of fear. If I can't do that, then maybe I should poo-poo it a little bit. But I'm sorry, I've used a very old-fashioned expression there. But maybe it's not worthy of me, rather than I'm not very comfortable doing it and admitting it. I'm not comfortable about working in front of a green screen. I'm far more comfortable about working on theatre. Therefore, theatre is better than green screen. That's rubbish. It's just horses for courses. And some actors, like me, can do everything.
Multifaceted.
It's interesting, like how, in this era, it's very common for very high-profile actors to participate in commercials. You've got, Charlize Theron doing the J'adore perfume. But I saw that back in the 70s and 80s, it was kind of frowned upon for high-profile actors to participate in commercials. So more often than not, they would do them abroad. I saw Charles Bronson, the actor Charles Bronson, did some sort of commercial in Japan because, again, it was frowned upon. So they would have to go very far, like go to Japan or go to Eastern Europe to do these commercials.
Well, you're absolutely right. There was a stigma attached to it, and it could actually affect the work that you did. And Lost in Translation is a great study on that. Bill Murray's performance in that. He's out in Hong Kong. I forget where. It's in the Orient somewhere. For a whiskey. And he's a weather-worn actor that's really ashamed of doing it, and it has that kind of stigma attached to it. And he plays it very well. But now, as you say, that's gone. You've also got that thing about TV serials and films. That can also TV actors aren't as good as film actors. But now with the emergence of Netflix, when you're watching some of the work that you see on Netflix, which is outstanding. It's cinematic quality in your home, and particularly in lockdown. I should think Amazon and Netflix. I mean, I know I've been watching Netflix and Amazon every day virtually. And the quality of the work on Netflix is outstanding. And so there's no way anyone can tell me that being a TV actor is somehow less important or grand than being film star. You can't convince me of that now, because there's some brilliant performances on TV now. You watch a series like Breaking Bad, and you see the standard of acting in that. It's Oscar worthy, you know. Bryan Cranston is Oscar worthy. That's an Oscar worthy performance.
Soon they'll start doing that, giving Oscars out for TV performances, because the level of the budget for it as well. And it, like you say, back to the Peter Kay thing, it's like they're giving people money who are talented, and they're giving them the freedom to do what they want. And some things are bad, some things are good, you know.
Yeah, but have a go. Let them have a go.
Yeah, I mean, I find it interesting as well how we're seeing a sort of change in the structure of commercials now. A very famous example is like, I don't know if you're familiar with the Deadpool film series.
Yes.
But the way Ryan Reynolds sort of got the audience hyped up for that, he did like a Bob Ross parody. And they even poked fun at some of the visual effects being incomplete, but it just made it so you do like reenactments with like dolls. And we're seeing a change now, because obviously we've got streaming services now, we've got YouTube Premium. You have all these things where you've got 5 seconds of commercials and you have to grab them in 5 seconds. Otherwise, they're going to click on skip ad. So, you know, it's got to be you've really got to, the attention span's different now. Well, you know, 10 years ago, it was something that we had to just kind of tolerate. Maybe go make a cup of tea, maybe go get yourself a drink, go to the toilet, whatever. But now that's changed. Now it's like you can skip, and it's like you've got 5 seconds to get them.
Yeah. Well, that was one of the things I was very aware of when I was doing Barry Scott, and that is that you've got to make people remember this advert. You've got 20, 30 seconds to make people stay in the room. So you've got to use techniques, and there were particularly vocal techniques and physical techniques I was using, and that's why children liked it as well. You know, it's like watching a cartoon character. It will catch your attention, and that's the whole point. And you know, I know it's bad, but you know, a kid may talk to his mum about Barry Scott and go, "Cillit Bang Man," while he's in the shop. You know, and his mum will go, "Okay, we'll get Cillit Bang this week." You know, I know that's the ethics of that are, you know, questionable, but this is how things are marketed, and you've got to make these things people instantly remember. So you get these sing-songy catchphrases like "Bag of the dirt is gone," you know, so everyone's going, "Oh, bag of the dirt is gone, that guy. And, hi, I'm Barry Scott. And, oh, I've never been through a pipe quicker." You know, that kind of thing. You've got to hit those catchphrases, you know. So catchphrases, very important.
Yeah, and it's, you know, you're sort of about 98% of adverts are very self-serving. You know, they serve their purpose, they sell the brand, and on they go. But there's that very small percentage that becomes a cultural phenomenon where the commercial itself becomes bigger than the brand. You know, there was an advert in 1998 for Reebok called "Belly's Gonna Get You," and you know, most people wouldn't even know that was a Reebok advert, but they know Belly's Gonna Get You.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's loads of them. I mean, some of them are so clever. I mean, you instantly remember the product.
You mentioned a name earlier. I can't pronounce it very well. It's a Russian guy, Stanislavski. Yeah, he was the origin behind. He was the brains behind the method actor, wasn't he? Not like you said, Marlon Brando would have later adopted it. But now it's almost become a bit of a parody of itself, because all the A-listers are jumping on board with it. You know, Marlon Brando was excellent with it. Daniel Day-Lewis was amazing with it, and even to a capacity, Christian Bale when he did The Machinist. But you know, when I hear stories about, say, Jared Leto playing the Joker and he's sending like all sorts of things to his co-stars through the mail, you think, I don't know. And then the poor guy only gets 9 minutes of screen time.
Yeah.
Do you think as well? Do you reckon Sacha Baron Cohen's a method actor? Because he
you know, I was talking to my son about it. It's a coincidence there. I was talking about him to my son the other day. Very, very smart guy. His father is a professor at Cambridge University, and he's been very well educated. And I think he is a method actor or a method comedian. He is creating an environment where anything can happen. When you look at the scene with Giuliani, for example, and, you know, this is, you know, and in the first one where he's at that tea party and he goes upstairs to the toilet. Yeah, and the naked wrestling through that hotel, I do believe he did that think, when you see the reaction of the people in that conference room, I think that's real. So he is pushing boundaries to get his comedic message across, and that is what we're talking about. Like Kaufman, what is it? What are boundaries? And that's what we're all in this pot at the moment. People are calling each other racist this week and unsympathetic to mental issues and stuff like that. The lines and boundaries seem to be very, very blurred or non-existent. So you've got either way. I was taught that acting is a discipline. And I think discipline is a key word. And I think the discipline is that you've got to create a controlled environment where you are portraying something to your audience and they believe that they're in that environment, but you are disciplined enough within it to have control of it and it not to go too far. But you watch those films like Borat and they're extraordinary to watch. And he only gets those results because he has pushed it way out, and you don't get Borat the movie unless he does do things like that. Released hell.
I'll tell you a funny story related to Borat, because I lived in France for a couple of years and I learned the French language when I was 21. Just decided one day I was going to learn French. Very spontaneous, but I kept at it. But I learned French from the southern French people, so I had a very Africanized accent. So that's scene in Borat when he goes, "You're teaching me to talk like a you," and then he goes up to the hotel guy and he goes, "What's up, vanilla face?" You know, I was very much like that because I had a very rough North Africanized accent.
Yeah.
And it really kind of like, they're looking at me like this, you know, this white guy from England speaking in a very kind of guttural sort of French accent, and they just couldn't wrap their head around it. But
well, there are white Jamaicans. There is a Jamaican accent. We all know the Jamaican accent. And there are white Jamaicans. And when you hear a white man speaking with that accent, you think, hang on a minute, what are you doing? You can't speak like that. But he's from Jamaica. That's his accent. So, you know, it does seem odd. It's the way the brain flips it around, but that's the way he speaks. He's from Jamaica. You know?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're coming towards the end now. We do this little segment where we ask the guests what their favorite movie of all time is, or TV show.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Right.
And it can't be a Cillit Bank commercial.
Oh, damn. Well, I guess my favourite TV series of all time, there was a series back in the 1970s called I, Claudius, which was about, it had Derek Jacobi, John Hurt in it, Brian Blessed, funny enough, in it. And it's basically the story of the Caesars, from Augustus right through to Nero. And it was like a soap opera. And you had John Hurt playing Caligula, Brian Blessed was Augustus, Derek Jacobi was Claudius, and Christopher Biggins playing Nero. It doesn't sound as horrendous as you may think, but he was very, very good. And it was a cutting-edge TV series. And the acting in it was extraordinary. The writing in it was fantastic. And it as soon as, you know, you binge watch things on Netflix now, we didn't have that luxury back in the 1970s. So this thing would be on, I remember it was on a Wednesday night, to watch this program week after week after week. And it got viewing figures of something like 18, 19 million, extraordinary viewing figures, 20 million. And it was cutting edge TV. So that one filmed, I mean, oh my goodness. There are so many wonderful movies.
Take your time, no pressure.
You floored me on that one. I mean, there are so many. I mean,
you could lie and we'd still believe you.
Yeah. Sorry, you're running. Do you know? I think I've been watching Goodfellas recently with my son. He's discovered it, and that is an amazing movie. And I do like the Godfather movies as well. And I'll very often go the first two.
One of my favorite foreign movies of all time is City of God, which is a Brazilian Portuguese film.
Yes, The Boys in Brazil. Yeah. Brilliant film. I mean, that one is difficult for me. I'm a great music lover as well, and it's like saying who's your favourite recording artist or song of all time, and it's just, you know, you've got about 50 or 60 you can mention, and you'll be here all day really, and you know, they all vie for position.
I'll tell you a bit of movie gossip for you, Neil. You like this one. So apparently, on the first Spider-Man movie, like even Tobey Maguire back then, even then he was a bit of a diva. and one of the electricians paid the guy playing Flash. Well, he said he offered him. He said, "I'll pay you $100, like in that fight scene, if you actually punch him in the face."
Wow.
Like the cast and crew just couldn't stand Tobey Maguire, so they said
Really?
to the guy playing Flash, who went on record a couple of years ago saying like he was offered a couple of $100 from one of the electricians to punch Tobey Maguire in the face during that scene.
Well, actually, that's just reminded me one of my top 10 films. Actually, now you've asked me that question, There Will Be Blood. Now, the reason why you just nudged my memory was Paul Dano, that is in that film, tells a story about Daniel Day-Lewis. Now, if you don't know that film, he's playing a priest, and Daniel Day-Lewis is an oil magnate, and he's having to do a deal with the church, which he doesn't want to do, and he has a big fallout with Paul Dano playing this priest. And Daniel Day-Lewis apparently had been horrible to Paul Dano throughout all the filming. And then they had this moment where there's this crescendo between the two of them where they're going to have it out with each other. And the camera starts rolling, and Daniel Day-Lewis punches the hell out of Paul Dano, for real. Actually does it, beats him up for real, and then walks off. And Paul Dano could not believe it. He's got bruises and cuts all over him. And the next day, Daniel Day-Lewis comes up to him, "Morning, how you doing?" Like that, completely different, because he got, again, what he wanted. He'd got that animosity between them, and a piece of realism that he wanted for the scene. And then once that was passed, he was back to being cordial and polite. So, there's that. But his performance in that film, Daniel Day-Lewis, I think is one of the best performances you'll ever see in a movie. Ever.
Well, we're going to have to wrap things up. I don't know how the final product's going to come out, because there's been a little bit of technical difficulties throughout. But it could just well be that the actual final recording is going to be fine. So,
okay. Can I just plug one thing?
Yeah,
go for it.
You mentioned earlier about my YouTube channel. You can check out some of my work, Neil Burgess, and also in about a week or so's time, I'm doing some stuff for Comic Relief, where I've been involved with a company called StarDM Me, where I do birthday messages for people. You can write to StarDM, they let me know who you are, and for a little bit of money, I'll send you a personalised message back. But from next week onwards, we're doing those, and the money is going to Comic Relief. So if you want a message from me and give some money to Comic Relief or whatever, or if you want a message from me and give some money to me, get in touch on StarDM. Okay?
Oh, of course.
Well, again, Neil, thank you for your time. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. It's been nice to talk to you, buddy.
Yeah, you too.